I had 3 weeks to get ready for that moment. None of those 3 weeks made it easier. I was standing in a private dining room in downtown Maple Hollow, watching a woman's face come apart in real time. The green dress she bought just for that night, the smile that used to fix my whole week, all of it folding inward like something structural underneath had finally given out. "What is this?" she asked. I remember thinking, you already know what this is. You've just never had to stand here and hear someone say it out loud. "This is Derek," I told her. "You borrowed $11,000 from him last year, for a sick aunt who never existed." Her eyes moved past him, landed on the second man sitting 2 seats down. "And this is Travis. 9,000, wasn't it, Travis?" 9 too, he said. Quiet. Which somehow landed harder than if he'd shouted it. I want to tell you this story started that night. It didn't. It started on a stretch of gravel road in the mountains 3 months earlier, with a woman who couldn't get a camp stove to light. My name is Ryan Coleman. I'm 42 years old. I'm a firefighter and paramedic out of Rock Ridge Fire and Rescue, just outside Maple Hollow, Colorado. 5 years ago, I lost my wife, Laura, on a stretch of Route 9 through Silver Creek Canyon. Early spring storm. Black ice on a curve she'd driven 100 times. My son Owen was 4 when it happened. He's 9 now, old enough to remember his mother in pieces instead of whole scenes. That's its own kind of grief. Nobody warns you about that part. For 5 years, it was just the two of us. A small house in Brookfield, close enough to the foothills that you can see them from the driveway on a clear day. I got good at braiding hair, before Owen decided he wanted it short, like mine. I got good at packing lunches that occasionally resembled an actual food group. I got good at a lot of things a single dad has to get good at. What I never got good at again was letting myself want something. For me. Every year, on the anniversary, Owen and I drive up to a turnout on Route 9, not far from where it happened. We leave flowers on the guardrail. That spring, the 6th one, Owen asked me a question I wasn't ready for. "Do you think Mum would be mad if you found someone else?" He wasn't looking at me, just watching the water move fast over the rocks below. "I think your mum would want us both to be happy," I told him. It was true. It just wasn't something I believed yet. 2 months later, I did believe it. And I wish, more than almost anything, that I never had a reason to. It started with a camping trip. Golden Gate had nothing on it. I booked a site at Ashford Ridge State Park because Owen had been begging to go stargazing since a school unit on constellations. A guy at the station told me the Timber Ridge campground had the darkest skies within an hour of the city. The site next to ours had a woman camping alone, which struck me as a little unusual, not unusual enough to think twice about. Her name was Danielle Cross, 36. She told me, though I never had a reason to check that until much later. She had an easy laugh, and a way of talking to Owen like he was a whole person instead of just a kid. If you're a single dad, you notice that immediately, because so few people bother. "You're doing that wrong," she told me the second night, watching me fight a stove that refused to catch. "I've been cooking on this thing for 6 years," I said. "And you're still doing it wrong." Grin on her face that made the whole thing feel like flirting instead of an insult. She had it running clean in under a minute. Owen thought it was the funniest thing he'd seen all summer. Made her promise to teach him the trick before we left. We shared a fire that night, the 3 of us. She asked Owen question after question about dinosaurs, his obsession that summer, and never once looked down at her phone. Which one was his favorite? Why? Whether the movies got the sounds right. Small stuff. But small stuff, done consistently, is what actually builds trust in a kid who already learned once that people can disappear. "You've got a good one," she told me quietly. Owen had finally worn himself out enough to fall asleep in the camp chair. "He talks about his mum sometimes," I admitted. "Not as much as he used to. I think he's scared it'll make me sad." She was quiet for a second, staring into the fire. "You should tell him it doesn't," she said. "Kids carry guilt about the strangest things. Good advice, small piece of it." which is exactly what made everything that came after so easy to trust. We exchanged numbers before we left, mostly because Owen point-blank asked her for it, so he could show her the fort he was building. I didn't have it in me to be the reasonable adult in that moment. I didn't know it yet. That fort would end up being the least complicated thing Danielle Cross and I ever built together. She told me she was a travel nurse, contracted through an agency called Northbridge Medical Staffing. Between assignments, waiting on a placement at a hospital across the valley. It explained the solo trip. It explained why she was a little vague about where she'd worked before. It explained a lot of things later. I wish it hadn't explained them so easily. Over the next 2 months, we saw each other most weekends. Coffee while Owen was at a friend's. A walk through Fairview Park while she was in the city for what she called an orientation shift. By the 3rd week, she came to one of Owen's flag football games, sitting in a folding chair beside my sister, Karen, cheering louder than anyone else on the sideline for a touchdown that didn't even count in a scrimmage. "She's good with him," Karen told me afterward. Watching Danielle help Owen carry his gear to the car. "Careful though," she added. "Good with kids fast usually means one of 2 things. Either she's exactly who she seems to be, or she's done this enough times to know exactly what works." I laughed it off, told her she'd been reading too many of those midnight true crime articles she liked to send me. I wish, more than almost anything else in this story, that I'd listened to my sister that afternoon instead of laughing. Danielle sat through 20 straight minutes of dinosaur facts without checking her phone once. Lower bar than it should be. She cleared it every time. She helped Owen with a school project I'd been putting off for a week. Showed up to his pediatrician appointment when I got called into an overnight shift, texting me updates from the waiting room like it was nothing. By August, Owen was asking if she'd be at breakfast, like it was a reasonable question about someone we'd met camping 10 weeks earlier. I fell for her. I'm not going to dress that up. After 5 years of feeling like half a person raising a whole kid, she made the house feel like it had its full number of rooms again. There's a specific kind of quiet that settles into a house after you lose someone. It's not the absence of sound. Owen still laughed, still argued about bedtime, still filled the place with noise. It was the absence of a second set of footsteps on the stairs at 11 at night. The absence of someone to look at across the kitchen table and just know, without saying anything, that the day had been a lot. I hadn't noticed how loud that particular silence had gotten until it stopped. Danielle filled it without seeming to try. She'd fall asleep on the couch some nights with a dinosaur book still open on her chest, one arm thrown over Owen where he'd drifted off beside her. I'd stand in the doorway some nights, just watching the 2 of them breathe, thinking I had genuinely forgotten a house could sound like this. That's the part people don't warn you about. When they warn you about con artists, nobody tells you the con isn't really about the lies. It's about how good the truth feels while you're inside it. Every quiet Tuesday night felt real. Every laugh felt real. The only thing that wasn't real was her. She remembered the small stuff, that I take my coffee black except on Sundays, that Owen can't sleep without the hallway light on, that the anniversary made me quieter than usual every spring. She used every one of those details like bricks. I mistook the building for a home instead of a setup. Late August, a barbecue in our backyard. I posted a photo of the 3 of us, Owen grinning with sauce on his chin, Danielle with her arm around him, me standing there looking, according to Karen, like a man who forgot how to be sad. The caption was every word I meant. 5 years too late. I didn't think my son and I would ever feel like a full family again. This woman walked into our lives at a campsite and turned out to be exactly what we needed. It got shared. A lot. Turns out there's a whole corner of the internet that loves a widowed dad finds love story, and mine landed right in the middle of it. Mom groups. A regional news page ran it as their feel-good story of the week. 20,000 shares in 2 days. That's where the first comment showed up. 2,000 people liked this photo before the first warning did. This woman is a con artist. She did this to my brother-in-law in Millbrook. Wake up. I read it twice. Felt something cold settle for about 4 seconds. then did what people do when they're happy and don't want to hear otherwise. I told myself the person was bitter, confused, targeting the wrong guy entirely. I moved on with my day. I didn't know it yet. That comment was the first of at least 6 people trying to save me from something I was too happy to see clearly. A week later, another photo. Danielle teaching Owen to fish at Lake Marrow, both of them soaked, laughing, after he half fell in reaching for his rod. Another comment, different account. I'm not trying to ruin your day, man, but please look into this. She did the exact same thing to a friend of mine in Millbrook 2 years ago. Camping trip, single dad, kid falls in love with her. Then the money starts disappearing. I have screenshots if you want them. That one I couldn't shake off. 2 accounts, 2 cities. Same story about a woman I'd started planning a future with. I brought it to her that night, once Owen was asleep. Tried to keep my voice level even though my hands weren't cooperating. People are saying some pretty specific things about you online. Her face did something quick. I want to say it was hurt. Looking back, it had the shape of a performance that had worked on plenty of men before me. Are you seriously going to believe strangers on the internet over me? Her voice cracked in exactly the right place. Do you know how many jealous exes come after women like me? I've dealt with this before. Ryan. It's harassment. Then who's the woman in Millbrook? I asked. I have no idea, arms crossed tight. Maybe someone who looks like me. Maybe an ex trying to ruin things because I finally moved on. You want to interrogate me over a screenshot from a stranger? I wanted to believe her. God. I wanted to believe her so badly. I actually apologized for bringing it up. That's a sentence I still can't say out loud without feeling a little sick. She let me hold her after, tears drying against my shoulder. I told myself the matter was closed. I didn't know it yet. That apology was the last easy night Danielle Cross and I would ever have. The messages didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied. Like the algorithm decided my comment section was exactly where this story needed to live. 3 days later, a direct message. Not a comment. Someone taking the time to reach out privately, which felt heavier. My name is Derek Simmons. I live in Bridgeport. I dated a woman named Danielle for 8 months last year. Different last name back then, same face, same story about being a travel nurse. She borrowed $11,000 from me over that year. Car repairs, a sick aunt, licensing fees to keep her nursing contract active. The aunt didn't exist, neither did the license. I have bank transfers. I have texts. I'll send you everything if you want it. I sat with that message a long time. In my truck. In the fire station parking lot. On a break between calls. Part of me, the part that still wanted this to be a misunderstanding, kept looking for a reason it could all be coincidence. Same face, same story, same made-up sick relative. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. I asked Derek to send everything. He did within the hour. Screenshots, bank statements, transfers highlighted. A text thread where Danielle, under a different last name, used almost the exact phrasing she'd used with me about her licensing fees. I called him that evening. Reading it on a screen felt too easy to explain away. I needed to hear a voice say it out loud. She told me the same story about her nursing license, I said, word for word, almost. She's good at it, Derek said. Something tired underneath the words. The specific tiredness of a man who'd already lived through the part I was only starting. The worst part isn't even the money, man. It's that my daughter still asks about her sometimes. That line hit harder than the $11,000 ever could have. 4 days after that, the second message, a man named Travis Moore. Up in Millbrook, I saw the comments under your post. I'm the guy the second commenter was talking about. She told me almost word for word what she probably told you. Met at an outdoor event, travel nurse, suite with my daughter. Cost me almost $9,000 over 5 months before she disappeared. Moved cities. I tried to report it, but by the time I did, she was already gone. Police said without more victims coming forward, there wasn't much they could build a case around. That last line stuck with me. Without more victims coming forward, which meant I wasn't just sitting on evidence for myself. I was sitting on the thing that could actually stop her. I called Marcus Reyes, a captain I'd worked alongside for almost a decade. The kind of friend who tells you the truth, even when you'd rather he didn't. We met at a diner near the station. Vinyl booths, coffee that had been sitting a little too long. I laid out everything on a napkin, like it was a crime scene diagram. "You need to file a report," Marcus said, no hesitation. "Not because you think she'll go to jail tomorrow, because right now you've got 3 men with the same story in 3 different cities. That's not a coincidence. Ryan, that's a pattern a detective can build a case around. She's living in my house 3 nights a week," I told him. "My son thinks she's his family." I know. I could hear how much that cost him to say plainly. That's exactly why you can't be the one who decides this quietly on your own. Let people whose job this is help you get it right. "What if I'm wrong?" I asked, quieter than I meant to. "What if this really is some jealous ex situation and I blow up the best thing that's happened to Owen and me in 5 years over a few angry comments?" Marcus slid the napkin back across the table. "Then the detective tells you that, and you apologize to her and move on. But you don't get to skip finding out just because you're scared of the answer." I didn't know it yet. Marcus's napkin math was about to become an actual case file, with the detective's name stamped on the front of it. I filed a report with the Maple Hollow Police Department that Thursday. Everything. Derek's evidence, Travis's account, my own timeline from the campsite through the barbecue post. The detective assigned Diane Foss called me in 2 days later. The first thing she told me changed how I understood the whole situation. "This isn't the first time this name has crossed our desks," she said, sliding a folder across the table I wasn't allowed to see the full contents of yet. "We've had 2 prior reports from other jurisdictions, under different last names. Similar description, similar method. What you and these other 2 men have given us is the first time we've had enough overlapping detail to actually connect them." "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now we build something solid enough that when we bring her in, it holds." She paused. "Ryan, I know this is going to be hard to hear. I need you to keep behaving normally around her for a little while longer. Don't let her know you know. The moment she suspects, she disappears to the next city, just like she did in Millbrook." 3 weeks. That's how long I had to sit inside a lie I already knew the shape of. I want to tell you honestly, it was worse than grief. Grief is at least honest about what it's taking from you. Owen had no idea, obviously. He kept asking Danielle to come to his games, kept drawing pictures of our family with 4 stick figures he now included, without asking me first. Him, me, Danielle, and a stick figure dog we didn't even own yet, because apparently that was next on the list. Every night I watched him love her without reservation. I had to remind myself I was protecting him, not betraying him, even though it felt exactly the opposite in the moment. There was one night, about 10 days in, where I almost blew the whole thing. Danielle came home from what she called an orientation shift and found me at the kitchen table, laptop open to Derek's screenshots. I'd forgotten to close it. "What's that?" She glanced over my shoulder before I could angle the screen away. "Work stuff." I closed the laptop a little too fast, my heart doing something it hadn't done since my last structure fire. "Incident report from a call last week." She looked at me a second too long, like she was deciding whether to push. Then let it go. Kissed the top of my head and headed upstairs to check on Owen. I sat there after, hands shaking, thinking about how close I'd come to losing 3 weeks of careful work over one careless open tab. Detective Foss worked with the district attorney's office to build the full case. Over those 3 weeks, the picture that emerged was worse than anything Derek or Travis had described individually. Danielle Cross wasn't her real last name, her legal name. According to records Foss's team pulled, was Danielle Marsh. She'd used at least 3 other last names across 4 states over roughly 6 years. Her pattern was almost mechanical once you saw it laid out on paper. Find a single father, usually widowed, usually through an outdoor activity or community event where trust builds fast and background checks don't happen. Position herself as a travel nurse explains sudden moves, irregular schedules, no local routes, without raising suspicion. Build the relationship 2 to 4 months, let the child attach, then start manufacturing small financial emergencies that escalate. Once the well runs dry, or someone starts asking questions. Relocate. Start again somewhere new. Derek's 11,000 and Travis's 9,000 were only 2 data points. By the time Foss's team finished cross-referencing old reports, they'd identified a 4th likely victim in a town called Danbury and were actively trying to locate a 5th, somewhere out of state. She's not a woman who fell into bad habits, Foss told me. Small conference room, smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner. This is a business model. You happen to be the version of it that finally generated enough overlapping evidence to hold up. I asked her the question, sitting under everything else since Derek's first message. How do we actually catch her? She'll run the second she thinks something's wrong. Foss leaned forward. You're going to help us set the terms of when and where she finds out. That's the part you have some control over. The plan, once Marcus Foss and I built it out, was simple in structure and excruciating to actually live inside. I'd tell Danielle I wanted a proper meet-the-family dinner. My sister, a couple close friends, a chance for her to feel officially folded into my life instead of just camping trips and backyard barbecues. She loved that idea. Genuinely. Which still makes my stomach turn a little, thinking about how easily she said yes to something designed to end her. This is the first time in a long time I've let myself want something like this, she told me the night I brought it up, her hand on mine across the table. A real family. I know I've probably seemed guarded about my past. I just don't want to mess this up. You won't, I told her. Delivered with a straight enough face that even I half believed it. One of the harder things I've ever had to say to someone. Knowing exactly what was waiting for her 3 weeks down the line. We booked a private room downtown. 1 door in, 1 door out mattered more than I expected. Foss coordinated with Derek and Travis directly. Both men. Once they understood what was being planned, agreed almost instantly to drive in. Derek came from Bridgeport, a 2-hour drive, without a single complaint. Travis came down from Millbrook. Neither had ever met the other before that week. Both told me separately they needed to see her face when she realized what was happening. Almost as much as they needed the money back. I just need her to know I know. Travis told me on the phone the night before. That's the whole thing I need. Derek was quieter about it. Just as certain. My daughter drew a picture of her, you know, he said. Kept it on the fridge for months after she disappeared. I finally took it down last winter. I just want to look her in the eye once before this is over. I didn't know it yet. That dinner was going to give both of them exactly that. And it was going to give me something I didn't expect to need nearly as much. The chance to watch my son's second heartbreak happen somewhere he'd never have to witness it. The morning of the dinner. Owen stayed at Karen's, thinking it was just a normal sleepover. Thank God for that. Nothing about that evening was something a 9-year-old needed anywhere near. I spent the afternoon in a strange, hollowed-out calm. The same feeling I get sometimes on the drive to a structure fire. When your body already knows what's coming and stops wasting energy panicking about it. I helped Owen pack an overnight bag. Made him laugh about something stupid on the drive to Karen's. Then drove home to get ready for a dinner I already knew the ending of. Detective Foss and 2 plainclothes officers positioned outside, a marked unit parked a block away, out of sight. Derek and Travis arrived early, sat at the far end of the room, introduced to Danielle in advance only as old friends from the department, a lie that felt strangely small compared to everything she'd been telling me for 2 months. We made small talk while we waited. The kind of stilted conversation men make when they're all quietly rehearsing a moment none of them have lived through before. Travis kept checking his watch. Derek barely touched the water glass in front of him. Karen, the only other person at the table who knew the full plan, kept squeezing my hand under the tablecloth every few minutes, like she was checking I was still breathing normally. Danielle walked in a few minutes after 7, green dress she'd bought specifically for that night. smiling the smile that used to make my whole week better. She scanned the room the way she always did, warm, easy, looking for me first. Then her eyes moved past me, landed on Derek. I watched her whole face change in real time. You already know what happened next. What is this? This is Derek. You borrowed $11,000 from him last year for a sick aunt who doesn't exist. And this is Travis. 9,000, wasn't it? 9 too, Travis said, not raising his voice, somehow landing harder than shouting would have. I don't know what you think you're doing, Danielle said, backing up half a step, eyes flicking between the two men and the door. This is some kind of setup, some kind of harassment. Ryan, tell them. There's nothing to tell them, I said. I've had 3 weeks to find out everything. Danielle Marsh, Danbury, Idaho. You want me to keep going? Something in her face gave out completely when I said the name Marsh. Like a door she thought was locked had just swung open in front of a room full of strangers. She took one step backward toward the door. That's when Detective Foss stepped in from the hallway, badge already out. Danielle Cross, she said, also known as Danielle Marsh. I need you to come with us. This is insane, Danielle told the room, eyes moving fast between all of us. Still, even then, looking for the one person who might believe her over everyone else. Ryan, tell them this is insane. I didn't say anything. I'd spent 3 weeks rehearsing what I might feel in this exact moment. What I actually felt was quieter than rage. It was relief. Mostly relief that Owen wasn't in that room. Relief that Derek and Travis finally got to watch her face understand what they'd been carrying alone for months. Relief that I hadn't waited for a 4th or 5th man to send me a message before I did something about the first 2. She tried to bolt for the door once Foss reached for her arm, got about 4 steps before a plainclothes officer blocked the hallway entirely, calm as anything, like he'd been waiting all night for exactly that. She stopped struggling almost as fast as she started, which told me everything about how many times she'd already run this exact scenario in her head, and decided it would never actually happen to her. I didn't know it yet. Standing in that room with my heart hammering somewhere up near my throat, the hardest conversation of the entire year was still waiting for me at home. The one where I had to explain to a 9-year-old why the woman in his drawings wasn't coming back. Danielle Marsh was formally charged 3 weeks later. Multiple counts of theft and fraud across 2 jurisdictions. Prosecutors in both counties coordinated once Foss's team connected the Millbrook and Maple Hollow cases through the shared evidence. Derek and Travis both gave statements that, according to Foss, made the case significantly stronger than either report could have been alone. By that winter, the Danbury victim came forward too, once local news picked up the story. A widowed father there had lost almost $14,000 over a relationship that started, unsurprisingly, at a community hiking group. 4 men, 4 cities, 1 woman who built an entire life out of finding the specific kind of grief that makes people want to believe in second chances too badly to check the fine print. I won't pretend the hardest part of this story was the dinner in that private room. The hardest part happened 2 days later. Sitting on the edge of Owen's bed, trying to explain to a 9-year-old why Danielle wasn't going to be at his next game without using words too heavy for a kid who'd already buried one parent's absence once before. Did she stop loving us? He asked. That question landed somewhere under my ribs and stayed there. I don't think she ever loved us the way we loved her. I told him, choosing every word as carefully as I've ever chosen anything. Some people aren't able to be honest about who they are, even with people who are kind to them. That's not about you, buddy. That's not about anything you did wrong. Is she going to come back? Quieter this time. No. And I know that's hard to hear. But I need you to know that wanting a family again isn't something you did wrong either. We just have to be more careful about who gets to be in it. He cried that night. I let him. Pretending it didn't hurt would have taught him the wrong lesson about what love is supposed to cost you when it's real. For a couple weeks after, he was quieter than usual. I caught him more than once staring at that drawing with the 4 stick figures taped to the inside of his closet door, where he thought I wouldn't notice. We got a dog about a month later, not because it fixed anything, Because Owen had drawn that stick figure so many times, it felt cruel not to eventually make it true on our own terms, without anyone else attached to the picture. We named her Willow, a scruffy rescue mutt from a shelter across the valley. Within a week, she'd claimed the exact spot at the foot of Owen's bed that used to belong, in his drawings, to somebody else entirely. Karen started coming around more that fall, cooking Sunday dinners for the two of us, the way she used to right after Laura died. Before life settled back into a normal shape and she trusted me to handle things on my own again. Marcus's wife invited Owen and me over for a couple of weekend cookouts. The quiet, unglamorous kind of community support that never makes it into a viral post, but does more actual healing than anything I ever wrote in a caption. Danielle pled guilty the following spring. Rather than take the case to trial, once the evidence from all 4 cities made an acquittal essentially impossible for any defense attorney to argue around, she received a sentence that included restitution to Derek, Travis, and the man in Danbury, along with several years of supervised probation once her time was served. It wasn't the dramatic ending some people wanted when the story first broke locally. No long prison sentence, no headline-grabbing courtroom moment. But for 3 men who'd spent months feeling foolish and alone, watching her formally admit in open court exactly what she'd done to each of them, mattered more than any sentencing guideline ever could. I sat in that courtroom the day of her plea, a few rows behind Derek and Travis, watched her stand in front of a judge and say the word guilty about a version of herself she'd spent years hiding from everyone, including, I suspect, herself. She didn't look at me on her way out. I didn't need her to. Derek and I still talk sometimes. So does Travis. There's something strange and specific about the bond you build with men you only know because a woman hurt all of you the exact same way. We joke that we should start a support group and charge dues, just to see if anyone would actually sign up. Derek's daughter and Owen have never met, but he sends me pictures sometimes of her at her own flag football games. There's something quietly good about 2 kids in 2 different cities, healing from the same shaped wound, without ever knowing the other one exists. Here's what I want anyone listening to take from this, especially the single parents out there who felt that particular ache, wanting your family to feel whole again so badly. You stop asking the questions you'd normally ask a stranger. Grief doesn't make you stupid. It makes you hopeful. In a way the people who study human behavior for a living know exactly how to exploit. There is no shame in wanting to be loved again after loss. There is no shame in wanting your kid to have a happy family photo to post online. The shame belongs entirely to the people who study that hope and treat it like a business plan. What I'd ask you to hold on to instead is this. The people who show up in your comments trying to warn you, even clumsily, even the first time you'd rather not hear it, are very often doing you a kindness you don't have the distance yet to recognize. I ignored the first warning because I wanted so badly for my son to have his family back. I'm grateful every single day that other people cared enough about a stranger on the internet to keep saying it, until I finally listened. Owen turned 10 a few months after all of this ended. We took Willow up to Ashford Ridge for the occasion, back to the same stretch of campground where all of it started. He asked me, unprompted, if I thought we'd ever try dating again someday. Maybe, I told him, but slower next time, and with a lot more questions before we let anybody draw themselves into our pictures. He laughed at that, the easy, uncomplicated way 10-year-olds laugh at things that are only half a joke. And for the first time in a long time, sitting by that fire again, it actually felt like enough. If you've ever caught yourself ignoring a warning because you just wanted the good version of the story to be true, I'd love to hear it in the comments. You're not the only one. If this one hit you the way it hit me telling it, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. There's a lot more where this came from.